Okay, folks, welcome to this week's Wealth Creation Show. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of delayed gratification. What does it mean? What is it all about? Do we really need to do delayed gratification, Richard? It's like, as I tell you all the time.
I know.
Let's talk about it, though. I mean,
it's quite a difficult thing, so it's a good topic, yeah.
And in today's age, when you think about it, the one-click purchase thing and the immediately accessible information you can get, it's instant gratification. We live in a microwave society. We want everything now. And if we can't get it, we reach straight away for the credit. And how much credit can I get to get what I want right now? Every single generation wants to live in a bigger house than their mother and father has lived before. And yet they've taken about 40 years to acquire it, and they want to live in it now.
Yeah.
That's kind of where things come across it. The world is always on, and smartphones and Wi-Fi reinforces that you have to get what you want right away every single time. But instant gratification isn't always best. In fact, impulse control is an essential life skill. And when it comes to achieving your goals, and delayed gratification is the skill that will get you there faster. Wait a minute. So delayed will actually get you there faster. So delayed gratification gets you there faster. That's almost like an oxymoron, if that makes sense. It's like it doesn't make sense, but being through it, I know it makes sense completely. I know it will get people there faster.
I think for me, maybe like you talk about, maybe everything's at people's fingertips and people want things now. And like you say, if they've not got the ability to do it there and then, maybe to purchase something or buy something, they'll get it on credit to get it faster. But then if you're doing that and then you end up in a position where you've got a lot of outgoings and you're paying a lot back, which is going to take you a long time to pay that off, and then ultimately slows you down for getting to where you want to be in the long run. So really, if you just delayed that gratification, you would have got there sooner. That does make sense. Hope we explained that.
Finished then. Let's go home.
That's how I would look at it anyway.
The truth is, it's not realistic to get everything you want, much less immediately. Instant gratification is actually the source of many a frustration. Often it causes a real conflict in between couples and families, because some people want instant gratification, where the other ones like, whoa, wait a minute, just hold off. It seems to be it definitely is a conflict in that case. It creates a false expectations, and by learning to employ delayed gratification, you buy time to strategize thoroughly and learn from your failures.
Yeah.
But what is delayed gratification, and how can you build that essential life skill? This is what we're going to talk about today on today's show. If you know anybody out there would benefit from this, please feel free to share it with them, or like, or post, or comment. Comment on the show as well. If you want to say something, you want to ask something, you want to reinforce something, that's been your belief as well, and your experience out of this as well, please feel free to do that. And I'll guarantee you 95% of the population actually need this. Why do I say that? Because there's a 95% group and there's a 5% group, and you have to choose by the way you think, the way you act. And one of these is a key point here, delayed gratification. If you're going to be one of these people in the 5% group. Now, the 5% group in the society, 4% are actually wealthy, financially free, that is. 1% are super rich. That's the ones you want to be in. But you can get there by delayed gratification. Okay, so what is delayed gratification? I hear you ask, Richard. Thanks very much.
What is delayed gratification, Jim?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. It really means that when you think about it, down to the fact of resisting temptation of an immediate reward. I remember this very, very vividly when I went to buy and most people won't know what this is because they'll go, what are you talking about? When you buy a mini metro. When I went to buy a mini metro at Taggart's in Kirkcaldy, at the top of Sinclair Street. Some people will remember that. I remember, actually, it was an impulse buy, because by the time I got it the next day, I thought, I didn't think I should have spent all that money, because I don't think I could actually afford it. But it was too late. I bought it. And that, for me, taught me a huge valuable lesson about what we're going to talk about today. It's a powerful tool for learning to live your life with purpose. And it's linked to impulse control. Those with a high impulse control typically excel in delayed gratification. However, delayed gratification is also a skill that you can actually develop. Well, according to Freud, pleasure principle. Humans are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. This is why children seek instant gratification from their parents all the time and their peers round about them. But as we actually mature, this desire is tempted by the reality principle and the ability of humans to consider risks versus rewards. But which we're able to delay fulfillment. Well, we're able to delay fulfillment, I suppose, instead of making poor decisions, especially if the reward is greater than the one we get immediately. And effectively, that's delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Does that make
I
sense?
think it does make sense. I mean, delayed gratification, a lot of people will benefit from what we're talking about today, because I think, like you say, 95% of the people out there. And it's a really hard thing to be quite, I'm not going to say strict with yourself, but discipline yourself to do. I know myself personally struggle with with not obviously coming to the temptations of just buying things that unnecessarily, or do you know what I mean? You speak about cars and things as well.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people do that, and then some people do it and think, oh, I didn't need that car.
It's easy to do to get sucked into it, isn't it? I mean, I just sat and watched someone else who said they paid £110,000 for a car, and they paid cash for it, and then they demonstrated how they paid cash. And for me, it's like, geez, I could have bought a house for that.
I was just going to say,
it's like that earns money.
Yeah.
It's like, why on earth would I put all that in, and why on earth would I buy a car at that level? Why would I not just hire it for a couple of weeks, get it out of my system, and hand it back? Maybe £4,000, better than 110. Or what I could do as well is I could maybe just get it on HP for a couple of years, enjoy the whole pleasure of it, and just hand it back and be somebody else's problem later on. So at least I've not got a commitment, which is long term, or I've not tied all that money up in that capital. Especially things like right now, delayed gratification is really important for these sort of things. I think Andrea makes a really good point here. And it's true. It used to be that children only got toys or clothes when it was birthdays, Christmases, special occasions. Now it seems like kids get a toy at nearly every shopping trip that the parents go on. And it sets them up to think that they can have everything right now. But do you not feel that's driven out of the way the mass media works and the fact that you're constantly bombarded with advertising and retargeted, and people don't realise they're actually being socially manipulated up in their mind in order to actually have that instant gratification and have that pleasure instead of that pain.
Yeah, and it has become more and more common for, like Andrea says, an example, kids to get things unnecessarily, and that is then programmed into people from a young age to have that expectation, and that's why delayed gratification is so difficult for a lot of people, because they've spent all their life like in that situation. And then that would bring us to, like, I mean, obviously, why is delayed gratification important? I mean,
why is it then?
I mean, the delayed gratification, I think, the ability to hold on or hold out is a better reward later, as an essential life skill, I think, and it is something that it is a skill. If you could do it as a skill, delayed gratification allows you to do things like forego large purchases, like we say about this car purchase. I mean, 110,000 is a lot. To save for a vacation, skip desserts to lose weight, take a job you don't love, but will help you later in your career. Do you know what I mean?
This is quite important when you think about it, Richard, because you actually said it right there about things like that. Delayed gratification can be small things as well. It's exactly what you said. It is skip a dessert because you want to lose weight. It's just these wee things. And that is a really good analogy when you think about it, about getting there faster. Because just these if you had a dessert every single day, I remember watching the weight loss programs that used to get on the television, when everybody super bulks up and all the rest of it, then all of a sudden, what's happening in the UK, because you get the weight loss programs on the telly. And it's usually typically around about the beginning of the year. Everybody's for summer, their summer holidays. And then they do the ones that are intense weight loss programs when there's a real big drive for it. And you get people like saying, well, every single night after my tea, I'll have a packet of crisps, or I eat 2 packs of crisps. And then they're saying, okay, just knock off these 2 packs of crisps then every single night and see where that gets you over a month or 2 months. And the next minute the guy goes, or the woman goes, it's like, I've lost about 4 pounds in a week.
Yeah, you hear stories like that with weight loss as well. And do you know what a big one is? It's people that are accustomed to drinking sugary drinks every day. And see, just to discipline themselves, to cut that out, the difference that it makes.
Yeah.
And you could implement that in any situation. Make small changes and stick to them. And they'll obviously transpire to bigger changes later down the line.
So what happened in the 1960s then?
Well, Stanford professor Walter Mischel created one of the best delayed gratification examples. He tested hundreds of young children by placing each child in a private room, accompanied by only a single marshmallow placed on the table. Now, I've seen this. You see this on social media about putting the sweets down and leaving the kid and seeing if they take it. Researchers then offered each child a deal. If the child refrained from eating the marshmallow while researchers briefly left the room, the child would be rewarded with a second marshmallow. But if the child ate the first marshmallow, then there was no second one. And I don't know if you've picked up on this on social media, and they've done this with sweets and children.
Actually, it's a well-known one, and it's like what you say. I think it's called the marshmallow experiment. So the results of the so-called marshmallow experiment, what did it come out as then?
Well, the results of the marshmallow experiment underscored the difficulty humans of any age have with delayed gratification. So some children ate the first marshmallow immediately. Others tried to restrain themselves but eventually gave in. And only a few children managed to hold out and then be rewarded with the 2 marshmallows for not eating the first one.
You could just imagine 2 other children holding back 1 other child saying, "Give me it now! I want it!"
But it's a brilliant example.
Out in the distance for the marshmallow. It's like, I want it now!
And more than likely, the people or the children that ate the first marshmallow will then regret not getting the second one because they didn't wait. And that's the whole point. Researchers followed the marshmallow experiment participants into adulthood over the span of like 40 years. And unlike the children who caved to temptation, the children who delayed their reward were far more successful in almost all areas of their life. They scored higher on standardized tests, they were healthier, they responded better to stress, they had fewer substance abuse issues, and demonstrated better social skills as well. And this delayed gratification example proved that it was pivotal to their success in almost every part of life.
Let me tell you, it's interesting that you say that, and when you go on about the ones that practiced delayed gratification from youth were the ones that actually were healthier, almost more successful in their life and everything like that. Because it reminds me, my mother used to say to me every single time, money burns a hole in your pocket. When I was young, honestly, I got something, I'd instantly run to the shop and spend it, or I would do something with it. And it's because I just couldn't learn to save. I couldn't learn to hold on to anything. It was just like it had to be spent there and then. And so when you think about it, if I was like that when I was younger, and I'm not like that now, this is a habit it can be learned, can't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not to say that if you've not practiced this in your younger years that's it. You're never going to be able to pick it up. You're never going to be successful, or whatever. It's something you could train to do.
So we can train our brain then with delayed gratification.
Yeah.
I mean, the ability to delay gratification is learning, is learned behavior in children, I would say, and adults too. So, it doesn't matter. Hey, if you've not learned it by now and you think, God, am I right off? It's like, no, you're not. You can train your brains to wait. Researchers in the University of Rochester wanted to dig deeper into the question, what is delayed gratification? They followed up on the famous marshmallow experiment with a new group of children, an important twist as well. They split the children into 2 groups prior to the marshmallow test. For the first group, the researchers promised rewards like cranes and stickers. But the rewards never materialized. For the second group, the rewards materialized as promised. This is quite a good one, actually. I like this. The children in the first group struggled with delayed gratification because they'd been conditioned to believe that the reward wouldn't actually occur. They had no reason to wait, since evidence had never given them any cause to trust the researchers. For those of us working to embrace delayed gratification as a life skill, there are several valuable lessons to be learned from these kids. The children who received the prizes as promised had unknowingly trained their brains to believe that they were capable of delayed gratification, and, more importantly, the delayed gratification was actually worth the wait. Those kids' ability to postpone pleasure was not predetermined or genetic. It was a learned behavior. This means, without a doubt, that you can actually train your brain to delay gratification in a number of different situations. So, it's true. Now, I've done it. So I know it's true for definite. And it is a learned behavior. It is not genetic. And it is not something that you're predetermined in your makeup when you're born. It can be learned, like most things. Apparently, when you're first born, there's only 2 fears you have. It's the fear of heights and the fear of loud noises. Every single other fear is acquired over a period of time and learned by the surroundings and the people about you. So delayed gratification is one of those learned habits that you can actually have. Skills like impulse control and long-term thinking are essential to achieving goals throughout your life. But Richard, give us some examples of delayed gratification in different areas of your life.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered a few already, but obviously we'll run through them all. I think you were talking about the strains and things that could have in relationships, and with relationships, I mean, resisting the impulse to start a fight or react angrily to a partner or your significant other, and instead use your communication skills to find a constructive solution.
That's no easy.
No, it's not easy, and that's what I mean, and that's things that, but it's a skill that you can learn.
I'll tell you what, I shouldn't say that because I'm pre-programming myself to say that's not easy. Yes, it is easy. You can do anything you really want to do. You just have to have the discipline and control to do it.
Another good one for relationships, and it's so important nowadays, is putting your phone down. Resisting the instant gratification, social media, texting, or whatever, and be fully present with your partner and conversation. And how many people do you see sitting for meals and things? What do they all sit and do? Look at their phone rather than speak to each other.
Sorry, what did you say?
Exactly like that. Yeah, that's what I mean, and that's what everyone does now. And
it's absolutely true, isn't it? You walk around anywhere, and most people are on their phones. Even at a function I was at last night for a wedding reception, the majority of people actually were just sitting on their phones around about the same table, and they never interacted with each other. I made a standing joke, I remember, at Molly's one time. I put it on social media, and it was probably about 10 years ago, where I thought, this is the shape of things to come. And literally a group of young people were actually sitting all round about, and they were all sitting on their phones, not interacting with each other at all. And I thought, well, what was the point of going out for a social occasion if, in fact, you're actually just on your phones?
You could have sat in the house and spoke to each other.
Sat in your house and done it, aye. You could have just gone on I could have brought up Zoom at that time. You could have gone on your phone and just got Messenger and just all gone on to Messenger at the same time and talk to each other. Oh, sorry, you wouldn't allowed to be talk to each other because you got to text and you've got to message each other. You're not allowed to talk to each other. It's like that's a no-no. That's too confrontational. So it is a learned habit, isn't it? But it does really have an effect on your relationships with delayed gratification. So definitely, I would advise people put your phone down. It's not easy. What other things that could we elaborate on then? What other things that would do?
I think in career progression, your career progression is really important to have delayed gratification. You can't just jump ahead. And I think to resist the desire to marathon Netflix or scroll through social medias, and instead use your net time to gain skill and knowledge. I mean, we say that all the time, John. Jim, build your skill and knowledge all the time, and that will advance you in your career or where you want to be in your career. Delay the gratification of a night out or maybe a late happy hour in favour of being well rested and prepared for maybe you've got presentations or something on at work.
Classic.
Be prepared for it.
Classic, isn't it? Now, I'll give you 2 examples of this. Delay the desire for marathon Netflix and all the rest of it. I spent the whole of Christmas one year when I started with Alba Diagnostics. No Alba. It was VZS Technical Ceramics as our new financial controller on the 3rd of December. And I spent the whole of December, including Christmas Day, Boxing Day, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, actually working on budgets and forecasts. I did not really. I went out for my Christmas dinner. I went straight back out my office. That's how important it was to me. For my future, for me, and more importantly, my family. I felt giving up that time at that point in time was more important to get that security and financial success I've got today. You know, so there is a price that you pay right now, but it's a lot bigger than getting the bill from regret. It's a lot less than getting the bill from regret, which is a lot bigger. Sorry.
Yeah.
A classic example last night as well. Loads of people it was actually quite quiet after about 10:30 at the wedding reception. And I thought to myself, well, Sunday night, school night, everybody's away home. They've got work tomorrow. And they can't afford to actually do that. If it was on a Saturday night, it would have been hoaching and people would have been rat-arsed at 1 o'clock in the morning and still hanging for the light shades. But it's a school night. It's like, let's get home and let's get sorted. Completely sensible approach to things, and you've seen it with me as well. Actually, just most of the time, even at Glastonbury, when everybody's still partying on till about 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm toodling off to my bed after the last event's on at 11 o'clock, and I'm away to sleep and put my earplugs in. That's me done. Because it's like, you know, it does affect everything, and it does affect your health. And this is one of the things we're going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about right now. Instead of giving in to instant gratification by eating that piece of cake, delaying gratification and reaping the reward of vitality and energy later is really important. Resist the comfort and certainty and instant gratification you get from an easy workout. Find inspirational workouts round about you and earn the delayed gratification of those health benefits. I showed that yesterday. You know, it was pouring and rain outside, so I just jumped on the rower for half an hour and did some rowing, but I put some 80s music on in the background. I really enjoyed myself. I actually really liked it. And then I went on the treadmill and I thought, can't I be bothered running? I just put the incline right up to about 12, which is the maximum you can get on it. And I just fast walked on the treadmill with the 80s music in the background as well. So it's just finding out inspiration for workout, how to be a lot more healthier in your lifestyle and in your overall well-being, and it does have a real benefit to you. So when we talk about delayed gratification, we're not really talking about big, massive purchases. And last night I mentioned it on the weekly update, and I thought people will be thinking, he's telling me not to buy the next house. And I'm like, no, I'm not telling you not to buy. I'm saying I always say to people, if it's a want rather than a need, you really have to maybe practice delayed gratification. If it's a need and it's essential, that's what the need is, then you'll probably have to work away on how to get it. And if it's more important to get it, if you find it's going to put you in financial turmoil later on because you're thinking, oh, I'm really close to the wire, then maybe a need has to be held off, and delayed gratification should be practiced at that point in time. This brings us neatly on to the subject of finances. Delayed gratification of purchasing something you don't absolutely need, and earn the long-term reward of having more savings and financial freedom. Imagine £110,000 doubled up in 10 years' time to £220,000 that you had now. Would that have given that person better choices later on? Possibly.
Definitely.
How important was the thrill in the car anyway? Is it really that important to people? I've got to the point where a car gets me from A to B, and that's it. And when people go, let's have a look at your car then, I'm going, okay then. It's like, but it's just a car. It's like, it's a car. That's all it is. So how do we employ? I mean, this is great, and we could talk about this till the cows come home. But the reality is, Richard, how do we actually employ delayed gratification?
Yeah, I mean, employing it as the part which I'm actually practicing myself at the moment with
Yeah.
certain things, and I think that a lot of people will be trying to do the same in their life. And I think if you want to develop self-control, it might be tempting to build as much muscle as possible by denying yourself anything pleasurable. You might even be tempted to up the ante by denying yourself a reward you'd promised yourself. But when you take the approach of tricking yourself, it backfires because your brain looks for consistency to guide its decisions. So be reliable when with yourself and follow through on your promises.
I wonder what that means. Let me think about that. You know, if you want to have delayed self-control, you've said, it might be tempting to build as much muscle as possible by denying yourself that pleasure. Now, we're talking about mental muscle, aren't we?
Yeah.
And you know, kind of just going deny. And I tell people about diets. You know, diet literally means die.
Yeah.
So you don't call it diet, healthy eating plans. So I tell people healthy eating plans don't mean continual denial of yourself. All you need to do is just make sure you eat the right things in moderation. That's what it is. So it's about building that mental muscle. And you were saying you might actually be tempted to up the ante, didn't you? By denying yourself the reward you'd promised yourself already. Maybe that is the time just to let yourself have that reward if it's a small reward. If it's a large reward and circumstances have changed, for example, financial and stuff like that, I'm going to talk about this in a bit more detail, then possibly you might then say, look, no, I'm not going to do it now. Classic example for me is the one thing I used to do every single time. I wanted a car. And I wanted a car, and I wanted a new car because I was running about in beat up minis, which were great in actual fact, but it was kind of a collectible. And what I mean by a collectible is every now and again, something would fall off and you'd have to stop the car and go and collect it. And that's the kind of car I had. So that was my collectible car. And then the Mini Metro was that wee upgrade and that extra. And I thought to myself, how much was the finance payments? And I would say to myself, okay, it was £250 a month to have that Mini Metro. And then I would say, okay, right, I could buy a house, okay, with that money as a deposit I've got already to buy that car. So I bought the house with a deposit, and then that house actually cleared £250 a month, which was actually able to buy me that car and hire that car. Sorry, buy it, but hire it on a lease. And I thought, then I'll have the house earning money and appreciating in value, and I'll also have the car as well. So best of both worlds, rather than sinking it all into the car and just having the car.
Yeah.
Now, even when I got to that point, you know what's going to happen next. I never bought the car. It's like I never got the car. I thought, oh, I could actually build up a wee bit more money and I could get another property in the deposit for that. And then I did the same again. And I kept telling myself every single time, okay, you can possibly have that car. And I really kind of wanted it, but there was more compelling reasons and there was bigger reasons that pulled me even more. And you know what happened in the opportunity cost show?
Yep.
I was going to buy a Lamborghini Huracan, but I ended up buying a house. And that's effectively how I've done it all these years. Everybody says, how did you manage to do this? And it's like, because every time I saved something up for the goal I really wanted, I actually genuinely just said, it's not really that important. I would love to have it, but it's not that important. And then when I still sit and look at what other people have done and what they've bought, I still think, how on earth could you pay that much money for a car? And I do know where I am right now. And it's like, yeah, that's a doddle to buy that car at that. But I still couldn't come to terms with buying a car for that amount of money.
No.
It doesn't make sense. It has no long-term growth. And it also doesn't do anything for my children either.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if my kids want a deposit for their house, or they need money, or they need to go on a holiday, or need to pay for them for their further education, or they need to get them as a one-off to get out of a situation with money, the last thing I can do is go, hey, I've not got any money, but come and have a look at my car. Isn't it nice? How's that going to go down, eh? It's like, but that's how most people live. And could you imagine going to your children and saying, and it's the same thing I talk about as well, and this was talked to me, it's like, you know, I love to play darts all the time, and I love to do other things, and I love to go out all the time, and win sort of trophies for, you know, darts and stuff like that. And then, you know, I remember Jerry Scriven saying one day from stage when I was listening to him, this was 35 years ago, and he said, you know, could you imagine, you know, your daughter or your son coming to you, and 20 years time, because, you know, the audience had all young children, 20 years time, and saying, look, Dad, I need to go to college now, or I need to go to university now, and I'll probably need about 10 or maybe £20,000 to do that, and then you take a big gulp and go, oops, I've not got the money, but I tell you what, come and have a look at my darts trophies, don't they look great? And that is a story that sticks with me all this time. And that's what makes me practice delayed gratification. So it's I was more pushed by my circumstances than pulled by my dreams. But a bit pulled by my dreams as well. But I always push myself with my circumstances. Right now as well, classic example, is I'm getting a wee bit bigger. I can't fit into my kilt now. And it's like, I am not buying another kilt. I will fit into that damn kilt whether I like it or not. And that's what's pushed me again to practice delayed gratification. About the instant gratification that you talked about, oh, there's a nice cake, or there's a nice bit of ice cream, or just one of this and just one of that. But it all mounts up. And my focus is to get back in that kilt, because it cost me over £1,000 for that kit. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let that go and buy another one.
Yeah, but I mean, that's really good examples, Jim, I think. And it is all those little things, and I think that brings us on nicely to what we're going to talk about next. And it's starting small is really the way forward.
You got any tips for that then? Yeah, one of them start small.
Yeah, I mean, to orient your brain towards delayed gratification, you need to start small. Create a goal so easy you can't refuse it. Like waiting 3 minutes before you eat your dessert. I mean, rather than just completely cutting it out, wait a wee bit longer until you have it. Improve by 1%, or in the case you can improve by, or in this case you can improve by 33%, and wait for 4 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So
that's a great
incremental
one.
progress.
I'll tell you a wee trick I was told of Tony Robbins. You know, Tony Robbins, okay? He says, if you're wanting to lose weight and you're in a restaurant and you want to practice delayed gratification and you don't want to eat something, but you're compelled to eat it, every single time you see a dessert appear on your table, jump up from your seat, right? Point at yourself and go, pig! And he says, you'll soon realise that you'll not eat a dessert ever again. And literally, that's the impression I had in my mind that I was going to do that. I never ever did it. But the very fact is, you can fool your mind into a wee bit into actually believing that this could actually happen. You could almost torment it to the point that you might actually do this. Yeah. And that's another driver. It will help people practice delayed gratification, especially when it comes to do that. But it's actually quite interesting you said there, Richard. You've programmed yourself to wait 3 minutes, but just actually waiting 4 minutes is a 33% improvement on that. Yeah, and possibly these incremental progresses, as you said, lets you build that confidence, and with each small goal you achieve.
Yeah, and you will. And if you keep doing small changes like that and achieving them, that will continually build your confidence, and then you'll eventually be quite confident in the fact that I could do this. And you've probably been through that experience yourself, Jim, through the years. And then that brings us on to obviously making rules and sticking to them. You can also use the delayed gratification as a rule for certain parts of your life where you may lack self-confidence or control. If you are a shopaholic, make a rule that you must wait 3 days or a week to buy the new jacket you saw online, or whatever it may be. Or make a rule that if you spend more than 5 minutes debating on a purchase, you don't make the purchase.
That's a really good one as well.
Yeah.
So making rules, when I go back to what I've done in the past, it was the case that I could invest in one house, and when I get to that point, or what I would do is if I invest in the next house and get to this point, that was kind of my rules that I'd set for myself. But then when I got there, I still had the discipline to say to myself, I don't really need it. Let's make another rule, another goal in terms of what I'm doing something. And it was the impulse buy thing. How I got over that was I actually said to myself, whatever I feel that I was going to buy there and then, if it felt like an impulse buy, I would always wait till the next day to decide whether I should buy it. Now, interestingly enough, the story about the Aston Martin garage, I did that. I went to the Aston Martin garage, I looked at the Vantage, I looked at the V8 or whatever it was, and all the different types, and the Vanquish. I looked at all these, I test drove them as well. The guy came to the end of it and said, "So, are you just wanting to go ahead, sir?" And I went, "Let me think about it overnight." And he said, "If you need to think about it, you'll never buy it."
Yeah.
And his words were, and I says, "Well, why is that?" And he went, "Because it's an impulse buy."
See, and
Wow.
that's the salesman himself, yeah.
£120,000 it was at that time to buy an Aston Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it's an impulse buy. That's why people buy them. So it was quite, and true enough, I never bought it. To be honest, once I drove it, I thought, cool, I'm not really keen on it at all.
Really?
There was something about it. You just sat far too low, and it was more or less, it was too enclosed, and you kind of struggled to get out the door. And I thought, why would I buy a car like that? Because it's just no. And then here's the thinking though. This is when I come back to thinking. It's like people buy that car to make them feel good about themselves and make them feel good to other people. You know the thing about they buy things to impress people they don't like.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of thing, and I don't feel that. So I never thought about the aesthetic pleasing and how I would look in this car. What I thought about how practical was this car for me to use, because I really wanted one for me. I never wanted it for anybody else. I wanted it for me. That's what I wanted it for. But then when I got there, I decided, no, it's no. It would just, it is that thing about I would resent it 3 months down the line.
Because you regret the purchase, yeah.
Listen, I did exactly the same thing when I bought a 3-bedroom, it was a 3-bedroom house, semi-detached at Canarchy Crescent. We moved from Durward Street, which was a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bedrooms actually, a double and a single. And we moved to Canarchy into a semi-detached 3-bedroom. But do you know, a bedroom sat empty for all the time that we were there. It just had all our junk in it. And I completely resented that room because I realised that I'd paid double or if not triple the price for that property to actually have the same amount of bedrooms, but in a different location because I didn't use the 3rd bedroom. And I was paying more council tax. I was paying more energy bills. And I thought to myself, God damn it, that was your blooming, that was more a want rather than a need, I think, at that time. Because we never ever used that room. And so again, that was another valuable lesson it taught me, another valuable lesson taught for that reason. And so it is about having self-control, as you'd said, and making your rules and sticking to them, and adhering to them as well. Any other ones? Any other top tips you would say?
Yeah, I mean, practicing gratitude and reminding yourself of all that you have is a very effective way to train your brain to accept delayed gratification. And it is all about this. I don't really need this, and looking at what you've already got. When you think of all the clothes you're already lucky enough to have, or the perfectly good car that you've already own, or you realise that you don't need the new stuff that you've been coveting. So instead of being disappointed, you're having a salad for lunch, say, for example, instead of a burger. Do you know what I mean? A salad instead of going to McDonald's, or be grateful that you have food in the first place to nourish you and your body. And delayed gratification comes naturally when you practice gratitude.
Do you think here, now that I look back, and this is the penny's just dropped here about this person that bought that car for cash, do you think he's actually going on to social media now, actually trying to get approval from other people that he did the right thing?
Probably.
Aye.
It'll
You wouldn't normally say things like that, would you? I mean, he was saying about, how I could show you how to do this as well, and that was maybe try to sell courses. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I do think people are seeking approval when they do stuff like that.
Yeah, I would agree.
So practicing gratitude, absolutely. I believe it 100%. It's training your brain, as you'd said, to accept that delayed gratification and understanding, and training your brain to understand that delayed gratification will always lead to better things every single time. And being thankful that you're able to do that within yourself, and you're able to discipline yourself to actually delay the gratification. I get it. I get questioned about this all the time when I talk about this in social media, from people that are mildly successful, but they're not as successful as where I am, where they want. And I think it's where they want to be. But I think it's more because they can't discipline themselves to get to the stage where I am. And they feel that they want to sell out at that point in time. And I do really mean sell out. It is like, I'm going to spend that money instead of investing it. And their mindset for that period of time has changed from when they get the money in, it's like, what can I spend it on? Then what have I got left to invest? Whereas the mindset before that was, what can I invest? And what I've got left to spend on? And for me, I think that's what's happened in that scenario. Jimmy Carr talks about all the time. How much is it going to take for you to sell out on your dream? How much is it going to take? What is your figure? What is your price? And for me, it's unlimited. It's infinite. No one will ever find that price, because I'll never get to a point where I've got a price that I'll ever sell out on what I want to do and what I want to achieve. It doesn't mean to say I'll hoard all this money, and like what we talked about is like, you give me £5,000, I'll invest it. You give somebody on the street £5,000, they'll spend it in the community. I don't mean it like that. I just mean it like the fact that, I've got bigger things I want to achieve, but I want to help a lot more people in what I'm doing. And it will take money in order to do that, to reinvest in them and in my community. That's why I keep doing it, the bigger purpose.
Yeah. I think also, Jim, anybody that's watching this and thinking about delayed gratification and things as well, or trying to put it in place, obviously have goals. And I think you always need to remind yourself of your goals. That's really important. I mean, what is delayed gratification for, if not the ability to reach your biggest goals and dreams? And that's ultimately where people are wanting to end up, and that's why you would do it. If you're putting off that purchase to save for a home or your retirement, or if you're having that salad instead of a burger so you could achieve the body that you've wanted to do, if you're on that journey, or even if it's just to have more money, keep a picture of your goal, maybe on your phone. You hear people about putting pictures on their fridge to start their meeting. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, keep a picture on your phone. You can even set it maybe as your wallpaper on your computer, just to remind yourself what you're working towards, and it will make delayed gratification all the more easier.
It's quite an important point you talk about that, and you talk about putting pictures on your we call them dream boards, goal boards, something like that. People actually, and the majority of people actually scoff at that idea and think that's just kid stuff, putting stuff on your board and that. But I tell you what, it does actually make absolute sense. It's interesting you actually said about, delayed gratification is not the ability to reach your biggest goals and your dreams. But putting off that purchase to save for a home or for retirement is probably, and having that salad instead. Now, this is the classic example of what we talked about the other week. We talked about the guy that actually could work night shift of being in the pub. So, delay the gratification of being in the pub, work their one night shift a year, and then you'll be financially free in the next 10 years just because of that one night shift. You're working a week, one night shift a week, and you'll be financially free in the next 10 years. My God. Why would you be in the pub then? But they obviously don't have that in their mind. They don't have that in their foresight. So that's why you need to cement it on a board somewhere. You need to put a picture up somewhere. You need to put pictures on your phone. You need to just remind yourself constantly
of what you're
striving for. You don't do it for someone else, by the way. You might want to do it for your kids. But you don't do it for your partner, I'll tell you. Because the first time you fall out with your partner, you go, to hell with you, give me the booze. That's exactly what happens, or I'm going out on the piss. It's like, all these typical things. It's like, I've had enough. I'm not going to lose weight anymore. That's a classic example. I'll lose it for you, dear. And then the next minute, it's like, oh, you've just annoyed me so much. Give me that cream cake. Stuff in the mouth. And so you've got to remind yourself constantly of these goals. Your goals have to be for you and not someone else. That is the most important thing you can ever do. It's the putting off your purchase. A classic example. Here's another one. I want to really go on the holiday of a lifetime this year. What's more important to you? Your dream home for your family or your holiday of a lifetime?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be over and about, I'm making memories. I tell you what, you'll make more memories in your dream home over the years because you'll have that a lot longer. And that effectively, I mean, people are spending £20,000 on getting married.
Oh, that's crazy.
20 grand. It's like that could go a deposit for a house, or £20,000 could pay your mortgage on your house for the next 5 years or something.
No.
And you've spent it in a winner on a marriage. It's that, and get married. Go down to the registrars and get married with 12 people round about you. Take them for lunch at the Old Manor. This is what I did, by the way.
Just going to say, Jim.
Take them for lunch at the Old Manor for 12 people, and then have a great reception at the Leaving Golfing Society you got for free, and get a buffet paid for you by your mum and dad. Job done. That's how to get married on a budget.
Yeah, obviously, we recently just got married, and there was no way. I mean, we did go away, and it cost a wee bit, but nothing like what people spend on weddings, and I just thought there's no way.
But that managed and afforded us to buy our next house, and it also kept us in the house we were in, because it was 15% interest rates at that time when we were at Durwood Street and Leaving. It was 15% interest rates. And we were quite fortunate because we had a budget mortgage, which was the equivalent of a fixed rate every year. So it budgeted the amount that you had to pay for the year, almost like your utilities, and said, that's probably what you got to pay for the year. And then the next year, when the interest rate was fixed again, it would fix the budget and amount at a different one. So it was called a budget and mortgage tracker. So it was very, very good, and it avoided, any ups and downs in terms of mortgages. So it's quite good actually to have some sort of product like that. But essentially, then it's a trade-off. It is a trade-off. Let's be honest, there's 180 billion amount of savings sloshing about in the economy still in household budgets.
Yeah.
Now, people watching this might go, oh, that's no ours. Some people might go, yeah, it is. But I don't really want to give it back to the government. Because I want to go on that nice holiday, and I want to have that nice car, and I want to have all these designer gears, and I want to have all these nights out, and I want to go, all these different things. I want. We've lived, maybe some generations have never lived in a economy where they've never needed to save, never needed to delay their gratification, never needed to do that. They've never experienced the credit crunch, because they've got a next generation. I've never experienced all that and had to go through all that struggle. And it is a struggle, but without struggle, there cannot be a victory. That's key in the whole thing. So this is why delayed gratification is so important. And keeping these pictures. Harvard University did this study. Now, this is a well-known study at Harvard University. Now, they did the study of all their graduates that left that year.
Yeah.
And what they did was they said to them, where are you going to be in 5 years' time? How are you going to get there? Where are you going to be? And how is it going to happen? And what do you think you'll have? And what will be round about you? Give me a mental picture of where you expect to be. Now, every single one of these Harvard graduates actually said to them at that time, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. This is where I'm going to be in the next 5 years. So instantly enough, they went back to these same people in the 5 years' time and after charting their progress, and they looked at all their situation. Now, do you know that 95% of them actually didn't achieve their goals, but 5% did? And they asked them, they studied it a bit more, and they looked into the findings. And what they found was the 95% actually didn't write down any of their goals at all, and didn't remind themselves every day of that. The 5% wrote down all their goals, reminded themselves every day, and practiced delayed gratification.
Yeah.
That's why they were in the 5%. They actually achieved their goals. And this is why I talk about the 95% group and the 5% group. Anybody can be in either group. You have to choose by the way you act and the way you think and the way you are, and the way, and the people you surround yourself, what group you're going to be in. If you surround yourself with poor people, guess what you're going to become?
Yeah.
you get like the people you think with. And Albert Einstein actually said it. He said to you, you will be the summation of the 5 people that you go about with in the next 5 years, and also that the books you read and how you educate yourself over the next 5 years.
The books you read and the people you associate.
Yeah, that's what it's down to. So it's all about reminding yourself of that, making sure you're on point with that. Great points, Richard. Great rules. The 4 tips: start small, make rules, practice gratitude, remind yourself of your goals every day. Do it for yourself at this point in time, no one else. Because as I said, you fall out with that person, it's to hell with you. Give me the vodka.
Come out for beer and vodka.
It's true though, eh? It's definitely true.
I know.
So, delayed gratification. Maybe some questions that's come in.
So,
and we've been asked, what is the difference? This is the first one, Richard. What is the difference between instant gratification versus delayed gratification?
Okay. So there is a big difference between instant gratification versus delayed gratification. We've covered quite a lot today, but one leads to short-term rewards that will feel good and in the moment, but will quickly wear off. While the other is a long-term skill, like we've said, and it can be a skill that you could learn. Instant gratification happens when you give in to your desire and get a boost of the happy hormones, like dopamine and endorphins. Delayed gratification is a strategy for reaching your goals and finding the long-term fulfillment from that. I think that's quite good.
It's a well-known thing that wee like button on social media actually gives you that dopamine hit.
Yeah, we've spoken about that before. The social media
gratification. Instant gratification, doesn't it? That's why people go to social media and they seek instant gratification from other people. That's why I post, and only do it for my business, obviously, but that's why I post less and less personal photographs of myself on social media. I don't need it. I don't really need it. I'll only put something on if I think it will help someone else or inspire someone else to do something. Hence the reason why I do things like, I'm running today or I'm swimming today or something like that, because somebody else might go, it's maybe something I should take up as well. That's the reason for doing it. Nothing else. I could happily leave social media out completely, to be honest, and sit on my book for the rest of my life.
We've spoke a lot about it today, and you've kind of already demonstrated that. But can delayed gratification be learned, Jim?
Well, it's proven that delayed gratification is a learned behaviour. Well, some humans actually have a better impulse control than others, which is related to delayed gratification. In a nutshell, you can still take steps to change your mindset. You can actually work on your impulse control, like the measures we'd actually said and put in place, and train your brain to accept a higher and larger reward later on, rather than actually taking the immediate reward right now. The marshmallow experiment we just talked about. That's a classic one that you would work towards and you would understand. But how do you increase delayed gratification then, Richard?
Well, there's several strategies you could work on that will help you increase your ability to wait for delayed gratification. Like I said earlier, start small, delay gratification for only a short amount of time, then increase the time incrementally. And you could always make rules regarding purchases, such as giving yourself a waiting period, like I said, obviously, instead of doing things straight away. Between when you see something you like and when you actually buy it. And then finally, don't forget to practice gratitude and remind yourself of your goals. And there's a reason, there is a reason that you want delayed gratification, and that's your goals ultimately. So always remember yourself of them.
Yeah. That's quite interesting that you actually said that, and the reward of the waiting period for when you like something, buy it, and this starts small. This is quite interesting as well. This is another analogy of this is actually running. It's actually to get fitter. It is start small, couch to 5K, isn't it?
5K.
Actually, just going out and walking for the first time and getting used to the elapse of that time period. Because I tell you what, if you go out and you think straight away off the cuff, I'm going to walk 10 miles, you'll be bored to tears because your brain has not developed and adapted itself to have that length of time doing absolutely nothing, engaging with nothing about you. It's always been on all the time. We're having mobile phones and computers and social media and people contacting you. And to be able to switch off for that period of time, it will be boring, and you will actually not. It'll be worse for you. And that's why you start small for that reason. And that's why people in Couch to 5K actually start small. Admittedly, it's exercise and health as well. The fact that they'll be puggled after 1 mile. But just walking and getting used to it. I mean, I remember when I first ran 5K for the first time, and it was like, God, this takes ages. And it was like dead boring. And then the next minute, about a year later, I was just going, I'm just going for a run around the block. And she went, Elaine used to say to me, so how far are you going? And I went, I'm just going to do a half marathon. It's like, and that's 2 hours. And it's like, I no bother. I'm just popping out for a half marathon. And effectively, that time went like that because my brain was now so used to a lapsation of that time. It didn't actually get bored because it learned to engage with everything else round about me and become comfortable with that environment. There's that word, comfortable. But the point is just to be quietly discontented, if that makes sense, because that then pushes you forward. The object of the exercise is never to be happy in life, just to be content. And if you're content every single day, then that's fine. And just make yourself a wee bit uncomfortable to push yourself forward, push your goals forward as well. So what would be the next question, Richard?
Well, I mean, why would you seek instant gratification? Why do we seek that?
Oh, well, let's look back. According to Freud's pleasure principle, it's hardwired into us. It's actually human behavior. Instant gratification is hardwired into us because we seek pleasure rather than pain. And it's the id that Freud talks about, the name for the instructional desire, the id. That's what that is. So if you've ever thought what the id is, everybody means it's called an instructional desire. Seeking immediate pleasure, and especially it's noticeable in children, as he'd said before, who act on urges for food, water, play instinctively every single time. It's an instinct built into it. See how we talk about instinct, human nature. It's like the flight or fight response. That's an instinct as well. That's fear. It drives that. Oh, I've heard that crack in the bushes before, and the last time my mate got ate by a T-Rex, so I better leg it because I've heard it again. That's that sort of thing. It's learned, it's programmed, isn't it? So as we mature, we must develop those delayed gratification skills in social situations. You wouldn't grab a stranger's snack just because you were hungry, would you? So that's learned, isn't it? So we learned that because normally a child would probably do that, wouldn't it? From another child. I've seen that happen.
But they're taught differently.
And it's acquired learned behavior. It causes this for us. So yet the id itself persists in many parts of our lives, making dieting, saving money, or other long-term goals extremely difficult for that reason. So overall, what's your final thoughts on this? Let's wrap up here because we've talked a lot on this. It'd be interesting to hear what other people have said as well. Actually, quick one. Andrea actually said something. I don't think we actually took this. If you think work is hard towards something, you'd let you have a reward. It's difficult then not to want that reward. And if you find yourself seeking more rewards than you actually have meant to have, that happens quite a lot. That happens quite a lot, doesn't it? Final thoughts on this, Richard? Delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification for me, Jam, and what I covered in there, I think if you're going to want to put it into practice, start small, make rules, practice gratitude, and remind yourself of what your actual goal, your long-term goal is. And that should keep you on track.
Perfect. Couldn't have said it better than that. Thanks very much for watching, folks. And until next week's Wealth Creation Show, it's bye-bye from us.
Bye.